Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's BAInsights special. Because today we're going to talk about the art of enjoyable analysis.
Or put another way, finding your happy place in BA.
So, over the next 45 minutes, we're going to share our perspective on how to introduce more enjoyment to business analysis. This is a session that we've held on last year's conference. So, whether you're a BA working alone or as part of a team, whether you're a manager or leader of BAs, you will hopefully find the session, leave this session with a further appreciation of the correlation between enjoying your role as a business analyst and improving business analysis outcomes. So over the next 45 minutes, we're going to share our experience on how you can introduce more enjoyment to business analysis. So whether you're a BA working alone or part of a team, whether you're a manager or leader of BAs, you'll hopefully leave this session with further appreciation of the correlation between enjoying your role as a business analyst and improving BA outcomes.
Okay, so by way of introduction, I'll begin by sharing a story. During 2022, 2023, I faced a series of major life events that affected me very deeply. And in my work as a business analyst at Macfarlanes, which is a law firm of about 1,000 staff, I'm naturally a curious, creative person. I really enjoy meeting people, working on process improvement, continuously learning and developing myself. But I found that I wasn't really enjoying my role anymore, or my hobby of blues piano. I should add, the photo there is not me. As I'm the only BA, having set up the function about 6 years ago, I also didn't have any other BAs to confide in at the time. Now, around this time, I was also diagnosed with ADHD, which, although was a bit of shock, was also a relief. And in researching the condition, I learned about the role of dopamine, which is a transmitter that can affect things like motivation and pleasure. And for those of us that have got ADHD, dopamine pathways can sometimes underperform and make non-stimulating tasks quite difficult to sustain. So as a result of going through this process and this difficult time, it drove me to explore different ways to find and rediscover the joy in my work and also in my hobbies. And in the course of meeting with John previously to do a BAInsights session, we talked about the role of BA enjoyment, and we thought it was a great opportunity to share some of what we found as we went through that process. So I'm really looking forward to exploring that topic with you today.
Yeah, and just to introduce myself further, I lead the process BA and process capability at Capco, a management consultancy dedicated to financial services and energy, I should add. We've got a large number of engagements and projects at any one point, and there are several hundred individuals focused on business analysis at any one time in the UK and globally. Like many business analysts I've met over recent years, I'm a frustrated artist. I enjoy being creative and producing interesting outputs. And as a football fan, specifically supporting West Ham, I know a thing or two about extracting enjoyment from the most difficult situations. And like Claire, I have to enjoy meeting people, which is definitely something that BA role, delivering BA training at Capco, and of course, hosting BAInsights has given me the opportunity to do. So that's why really the topic of BA enjoyment very much resonated. So enjoying your role provides benefits to both the individual and the team around them, as well as the organisation.
So aside from my personal interest, when I started looking into this subject, I found that the question of whether we're enjoying our roles or not is an area of huge academic and business interest. And there's a whole wealth of research that evidence that it does have a direct connection to our health and well-being, and also to the bottom line for organisations. And if you have a look at the numbers here, they're not insignificant. Around half of us are unsatisfied or unhappy at work. And the research suggests that this is contributing to an $8.8 trillion productivity loss, which is actually a huge number. And although it may sound obvious that happier staff will be more productive at work, it doesn't just affect you and the work that you're delivering. No man is an island, and clearly, if you're not enjoying your role and you're not feeling happy, that could have an impact not only on the people that you work with directly in your team, but your project stakeholders, third-party suppliers. You may take it home, and it may have an impact on family and relationships with your friends, and it may drive whether or not you're willing to network and be an active contributor to the wider BA community.
analysis role is learning new approaches and techniques, as well as meeting new people in the BA community, as I said before. This, and as well as learning from a variety of ways, gives me, and the role gives me that creative opportunity to apply to my business analysis outputs. I enjoy being part of a team, which may be my Capco team or client team, and collaborating with my colleagues within it. The enjoyment we get from our role positively impacts productivity, which helps deliver high quality of work, problem solving through applying our creative side, as well as helping raise the morale of the team. And there are uplifts, of course, in performance, which can contribute to a positive reputation, which might lead to future career opportunities as well. And not to overrate it, but learning as well is another benefit, and the improvement in our interpersonal skills and much more. But it's not just me and Claire that have this view. Before the BA conference and before BA Day, we run a survey to gauge what others felt, and we just share a few of those perspectives on screen.
And I think the results echoed a lot of what John said and what the research bears out as well. So we'll now look at the forces impacting BA enjoyment, and force field analysis may or may not be a technique that you're familiar with, but essentially it involves looking at the forces acting for or against a given change, or in our case, a given topic, which is, are we enjoying our roles? And I found this to be a really, really valuable technique, because after looking at the different factors at play, you can then start to explore what the mitigating factors might be that you can introduce. Now, in my case, I mentioned earlier that I'm a lone BA. Now, in terms of skills development, and I don't think this is necessarily specific to lone BAs, but it can sometimes be difficult to get access to stakeholder feedback, to find those continuous improvement opportunities. Now, at Macfarlanes, because of our IT strategy, my BA involvement is often around supporting software procurement, which is really at the pre-project implementation phase. And then obviously by the time the project's into implementation and close, that can be quite a long time period, and the opportunities to gain stakeholder feedback on my particular input can often be lost. So to counter this, having identified this as a potential concern, I've begun asking for feedback as part of the handover as we move out of procurement and into project implementation. And this can really help to kind of counterbalance the sense of maybe feeling like you're underappreciated or an unsung hero when everyone's celebrating at the end of the project. The second thing I want to talk about is alignment between career goals and the work you do. Now, in my case, for large sort of multi-year projects or projects with a certain degree of complexity, we may bring in specialist consultancies to assist with the discovery and the requirements. And that's also partly down to my limited capacity as the only BA. Now, what that means in practice is it can limit my exposure to certain types of projects. Now, to counter this, I took a step back and thought, okay, well, what value am I getting in the sorts of projects that I'm working on? And really, with what I am working on, it can tend to be lots of small to medium projects, or lots of sort of, it can be an individual thing in a UI. It could be a small change to a report or something that makes a big difference to someone. And actually, when you take a step back and look at the collective impact of all of those improvements, they can really be quite significant. And that really kind of enables me to demonstrate my overall impact over a year. So it may not be one large project, but it may be myriad smaller pieces of work. Now, juggling multiple projects as a lone BA can be quite pressured and quite demanding. But having reflected on it, actually, in my case, as a lone BA, I've got complete flexibility in choosing my approach to my work, which I find really valuable. That really helps with my job satisfaction. And we've got a fantastic agile working arrangement at Macfarlanes, which means I can balance out my personal and professional life. And we've got a very creative and entrepreneurial culture at the firm as well, which means they're always willing to allow me to experiment with making improvements. So I found this a really valuable process to just take a step back and look at what's sort of driving or taking away from the enjoyment of my role and what I can do about that.
And like Claire, also went through the full sword analysis myself, and I won't read everything that was on that analysis, but clearly, as we can see in examples here, the opportunities for collaboration and creativity, as well as that continuous learning that I mentioned earlier on, they're definitely real driving factors behind my enjoyment of the BA role. Now, aside from that, there were, as you can see, we compare both myself and Claire. There were definitely areas of correlation. We both enjoy the project content, the supportive work culture, and feeling appreciated, although we've called out other things besides that, as you can see on the slide.
So having had a look at the internal forces, as you would in any BA engagement, we then moved on to look at what some of the external forces are that can influence role enjoyment. For this, we chose the technique of a pestle analysis, which I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have come across. Now, as a lone BA, having reflected on the different aspects of the pestle analysis, in terms of technology, in firms of our size, business services teams often consist of one person per role, which means access to really effective tools and technology can really significantly enhance work processes and increase efficiency, which makes tasks more engaging for everyone. And I really enjoy implementing new technology. So it's a kind of a virtuous circle, because there's my excitement for new tech, which boosts my happiness. And then we know that hopefully, if we put the right tech in, the people that are going to be using it are going to be happier because they've got more time for those higher value add tasks. Additionally, technology obviously will impact the BA role. I can only speak for myself, but I find writing acceptance criteria to be a cure for insomnia. So the potential of experimenting with generative AI tools like ChatGPT to expedite those tasks is very exciting for me as well. And who knows, it may even be over the longer term that some of those less interesting tasks can be speeded up and even perhaps made to be a bit more enjoyable as a result of using those new technologies. On to geopolitical factors. I'm sure as BAs we've all encountered the shadow IT and attempts by stakeholders to bypass official channels, particularly with the arrival of SaaS solutions. But with the heightened focus on cybersecurity, having reflected on it, I've realised that actually this has really positively impacted the dynamic, because now we've got stricter requirements in terms of cyber certifications to maintain. There's much more of an imperative for staff to come to IT early on before they've got their credit card out to talk to us, which is great for enhancing visibility of the BA work, but also the control over the software that we're implementing to ensure it aligns with our technology strategy. The third area I want to call out is social and environmental factors. Now, as BAs, we typically wear two hats. We've got certainly as a lone BA, I need to perform my duties as a BA on projects, but I also need to promote the BA function within the firm. And I'm experimenting with different ways to do this. One of the ways is that our firm has got various inclusion networks and environmental initiatives. And these provide a really good opportunity to volunteer on cross-firm initiatives. I can connect with colleagues I might not typically meet, and I've had the opportunity to employ my BA skills on some of these cross-firm projects. So I would kind of describe it as boomerang marketing. So I'm doing a good job on these initiatives, which is helping the firm. I'm enjoying it. I'm raising awareness of how the BA role adds value, and then I'm building relationships that could lead to further projects and collaborations down the line, which is then obviously fulfilling, and I'm making a difference at the same time.
And for the BA working in a larger organisation, the external factors impacting enjoyment may in some cases be as we've just heard, yet in other ways be no different. And as we can see, I've done a pestle analysis as with Claire as well, and we'll share the results of that later. Now, from as we can see, having done the pestle analysis, similarly as before, there are some areas of similarity between the large organisation and the lone BA that are very much correlated to enjoyment. But there are other factors that are not quite the same between the lone BA and a large organisation as well.
So having explored these forces, the next stage on from this was to do a SWOT analysis. So we've combined the internal strengths and weaknesses associated with our roles and our own organisations with the external opportunities and threats presented following the PESTLE analysis inside the organisation.
So I'm taking some time to appreciate the internal and external factors BA related to your enjoyment. We'd like to turn our attention to discovering your and our BA passion. So before I share our approaches for uncovering your BA passion, we'd like to invite you to share what you're passionate about. So if you've got any passions that you want to share about from a business analysis perspective, please put them in the comments. Okay, now in order to prepare for the session, Claire and I set ourselves a challenge to explore what we enjoyed and are passionate about, and using familiar business analysis techniques and some that are outside of the BA world. And we'll start off with root cause analysis. And as you can see, as I click into that, we're going to see my own root cause analysis on enjoyment. Okay. Now you'll be pleased to know that I won't be reading every word or exploring every cause and effect. However, I will summarise some key points and relate back to when Claire and I were introducing ourselves and sharing what we enjoyed earlier. As it turns out, a reason I like to meet and collaborate with new people is it offers an opportunity to learn new skills, which in turn helps make my role and my day a bit more interesting. And as illustrated, I enjoy creating or designing new ways to visualize, as this satisfies my creative side, which also helps me develop a unique or at least different perspective on a situation. I'm really focused on creating value in my role, as this gives me a sense of purpose, knowing I'm working on something worthwhile, which justifies my effort to learn. This in turn also makes my day a little bit more interesting, common thing. So whether you use this technique, one that Claire or I will share, one of your own, why not BA your own enjoyment and see what you uncover.
So we'll now move on to look at energy accounting, which isn't a business analysis technique, but it is one that I came across after being diagnosed with ADHD. It's actually a technique developed by an autistic clinical psychologist. And the reason for this is that living with ADHD and autism can be very draining, and even mundane activities can lead to sensory overload, which can lead on to burnout. And so this is a really popular technique to help avoid burnout, and it's also used within the chronic health community as well. So how does this relate into being a BA? Well, certainly as a lone BA, we can jump from project to project without any decompression time. And we're particularly at risk of this in smaller firms because we may be simultaneously juggling quite a large number of projects that have kind of got overlapping end dates. They'll all have their own big long list of requirements and stakeholders to manage. So really the essence of energy accounting is that you start to become aware of your energy levels and how you spend your energy each day. And you can use it to plan your day and your activities more efficiently and effectively. So I used it to identify which BA activities really energize me, as they're the ones that I most enjoy. I also looked at what I do outside of work and how that replenishes me when I'm feeling a bit drained, and also looked at the activities that kind of drain my energy. Now, when we get busy, it's often the things that re-energize us that can be the first things that we chop off. So becoming a bit more mindful about what those are can mean that we start to put a ring fence around those and make sure that we don't drop those away. Now, on the enjoyment side, I realised that how I approach my BA role and the wider context has quite a big bearing on my enjoyment levels. Now, I noticed that I feel very energised and happy when I've had time to think and plan what I'm doing so that I can do the best possible. And that helps me feel calm, which as someone who has ADHD is really quite important. But I don't always put myself first or ring fence enough planning time. And that, again, can be one of those first things that gets chopped off when we're busy. And interestingly, when going through this process, I also noticed that forecasting how long tasks will take is quite de-energizing. So having root caused that a little bit, it was really because I hadn't really practiced it enough. And if I was better at it, then it wouldn't be such a de-energizing task. So it gave me some really clear continuing professional development areas to focus on that would impact both my energy levels and the enjoyment of my role.
BA technique, but it is a useful diagnostic tool that can help you identify what personal values and priorities drive how you approach your overall career. The technique can help focus on what you hold precious, on which impacts your professional enjoyment. As you can observe, Claire and I applied Eggershine's career anchors using the free link on screen to consider our personal value orientations, social attitude to career, and work in general. And doing so allowed us to understand our strengths and our career aligned to our inner satisfaction from work. We had similar scores, interestingly, reflecting what we value and what we would look for in our role. We both value technical competence, which is perhaps aligned to the desire to get to the level of detail that would suit our analysis preferences. Perhaps this technique is something you could use to be valuable to yourself and your team to explore your own career and your own personal drivers.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next one, which is the BA service framework, and I'll share a short story about how I use that to improve the BA service and increase my role enjoyment. So the BA service framework is part of the BCS BA diploma. It's published in a few of his books, and it categorises BA services and techniques into 6 areas. Now, as a small firm, it tends to be similar people that certainly in our business services community that request projects. So I did a service design project to find out which areas they need more help with. And I discovered 3 things. Firstly, that with people's increase in digital literacy and the domain knowledge that business services staff have when they've served in a firm for a long while, many people really have got good knowledge of their own problem or opportunity areas. And because we tend to buy software rather than build it, they feel relatively confident with taking a first go at drafting out their requirements. And secondly, early consideration of change, certainly the people side of change, was something that can sometimes be neglected to deliver. And thirdly, certainly at the time we weren't doing benefits realisation reviews, and our culture is very fast paced. We tend to deliver and move on. So taking a step back from that, business change deployment actually emerged as quite a critical area to focus on. And then I reflected, well, would I really enjoy this? And this was where it was helpful having done the early analysis, because when I did the energy accounting, I revealed that I find planning and being calm to be energising, and careful planning and change management can hugely impact project success. So here was a chance both to increase my own enjoyment levels and develop really, I suppose, part of a service offering that would have quite a big impact. And certainly the BA service framework provides that mandate to dive in, as it does cover off business change deployment. And then when we did the force field analysis, it showed me that seeing the cumulative impact of multiple small to medium-sized projects is quite vital to my job satisfaction, and gathering credentials and helping to tell that story is partly of what benefits realisation reviews help to achieve. So in my case, using the BA service framework as a way to structure a service design review, and then using what I'd learned from that and what the direction I felt we needed to go in to further refine the BA service, brought a lot of value. Now, another way that you can use it, which is a shameless steal from Michelle Shakechef, which was discussed at a workshop a couple of years ago, is that you can also use it to do a gap analysis between the service areas that you spend your time on versus the ones you like to spend your time on, and then analyse your confidence and competence with the techniques that you'll need to successfully move into those service areas. So I think overall the BA service framework can work really effectively as a diagnostic tool.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, and for anyone out there, use it with your own service catalogue already, definitely apply this technique to it to really identify within your organisation what areas you particularly enjoy in relation to your BA or wider service catalogue.
So we've shared a couple of techniques now that you can use to discover your BA passions or help your team to find theirs. And I hope you're going to include some comments at the bottom. But we'll now explore how to do or how to get to do more of what you enjoy with our roadmap to enjoyment.
Okay. So thanks to Deborah Paul's puppet model, I was able to explore an example process, organisation, people and information technology aspects could be related to my areas of enjoyment to inform an action plan that can make my day, believe it or not, even a little bit more enjoyable. So the outcomes in the form of recommendations I could apply to help me add enjoyment were very much common to the themes from the root cause that I just took you through. And although in the Poppet model I focused on my professional enjoyment, I'm sure that you can make a connection between what we enjoy in our life outside of work and how to relate that work to our BA activities. Now, in my case, as I've said before, being a frustrated artist or wanted to do some design and getting loose on some BA outputs or outputs, I've been known to try and apply some of that interest to visualize data, perhaps from football, as it were, using what I'd seen at World Cups and other interesting football-related sessions onto my projects. And as such, it's given me time to explore that idea of bringing more artistry and design into some of the things we do and being more innovative and hopefully bringing better BA approach. Now, I've done this earlier when I started my BA career and my Insights channel, or as I've done this earlier, it's certainly been a great way to meet others across the BA community anyway.
Okay, so moving towards the closing phase of our discussion, if you are finding that BA enjoyment was something that once existed in a galaxy far, far away, or you would like to make a jump to light speed and enjoy your current role even more, we have developed a Star Wars themed roadmap, chosen both really because me and John both love those films for no reason other than that. Now, there's no right or wrong way to do this, but we'll share what worked for us. So, using your choice of techniques, could be the ones that we shared together today or other techniques that you really enjoy. And we encourage you to go on a journey of reflection and self-discovery about what you enjoy and what you want to do more of, and identify any pain points. And we would encourage you to be really honest with yourself, dig deep with techniques like root cause analysis and 5 whys. And with this increased self-awareness, identify what your future enjoyment state looks like. Now, at this stage, you'll need to explore whether that's feasible within your current role. Now, it might not be, but if that's the case, and you have concluded it's time for a move, then we really want you to do that from a position of owning that decision rather than one of frustration or even anger. And as Yoda would say, anger leads to hate and hate leads to suffering. And I'm not going to do a Yoda impression. If it feels like it's feasible to increase your enjoyment within your existing role or company, then Padawans, you may use an old Jedi mind trick, otherwise known as gap analysis, to formulate your plan. And with a carefully prioritised plan, you can identify the support you need. Now, this doesn't mean short, hairy, stick-waving creatures from the moon of Endor, but it can involve one or more of your team, your manager, maybe a mentor, a coach, or even contacts within your BA network. And remember that big change can come from lots of small increments. So for the things you're not sure of, if you can, try and be playful and do some experiments. For the things you are sure of, consider including those in your objectives and your continuing professional development plan. And finally, set some personal success criteria. So when will you check in with yourself and hold yourself to account? How will you know whether your actions or experiments have increased your role enjoyment? And set aside time to regularly note down your lessons learned to plot your course to galactic success.
Okay. And as you're still with us, those of you that are still with us, you'll appreciate that business analysis affords us the opportunity to explore our own way of working, as well as that of our team, and find situations in every activity to enjoy what we're doing, or perhaps to enjoy it a little more. So why not explore your own creative side or enjoyment of visualization, as I have, to demonstrate the value in what you do, and what you might take enjoyment from. And if that doesn't float your boat, then why not explore what does? See if you can bring it into your working approach. You'll note that a practical enjoyment or practical roadmap to enjoyment can be a familiar one that you can employ on your projects, on your product deliveries, and in your roles today. So seek the opinion of others involved in business analysis, or observe what others do, how they do it, and approach them to see how they feel about their role, as well as how to guide what you can do to enjoy, to do more of what you enjoy. And those others that you might seek guidance from can be within your organisation or external members of the BA community or family. And as business analyst professionals, you already have the skills and the techniques available to you to apply to every situation. So to apply them, start by applying them to yourself, and BA the hell out of the activities you don't enjoy and don't add value, and make space for more of the valuable work that you do find enjoyable. We're now nearing, or we're now at the close of the session. So we hope we've given you a few ideas on how you can find more happy places in business analysis.
Now, I thought I knew myself quite well before going through this process, but this journey really gave me some aha moments, and I've realised that enjoyment can come from many different factors. Now I understand the connection between what I do and what I enjoy, and I've found that I've got some concrete steps to help me enjoy my role even more. And life isn't static, so I'll certainly be redoing this periodically, or whenever I think I need to do a bit of an enjoyment spring clean. So thank you very much for listening. And remember that thinking about your BA enjoyment is not indulgent, it's good for your health.
And I'd like to thank you as well. Before we close, I'd like to invite you once again just to share your own views on how you brought enjoyment to your BA role, to that of your team or that of your BA function, or indeed what you find enjoyable about your business analysis. I'd really like to hear about that in the comments. Beyond that, some of the takeaways, just try and lead by example, be proactive and doing what you enjoy, and create a new current state where the BA activities you don't enjoy are automated or done in a way that's a little bit more enjoyable. So thanks for participating and joining the session.